Hi, I'm Annie Williston, and this is Fueling Up with Father, and today I have with me...
Father Scott Nolan.
I like how there's like a question mark at the end.
I didn't realize you were going to ask me to fill it in. I thought you were just going to say my name.
No, that's okay.
I definitely was like, I have with me, and then it's like, you know the answer. Oh no, you want me to say it? Okay, I got it. I know how to do this.
I think we're going to leave that in. This is perfect.
I think we need our commentary on it too.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so where are you at? What do you do?
I am currently assigned in Minnesota. I work at St. John Vianney College Seminary. So I'm there with the seminarians. I'm on loan to the Archdiocese to do that work. So I work with all the seminarians who are there. And human formation is the primary work that I do. So what is human formation?
That's a great question.
I always have to explain it. And so it's undergraduate levels. That's the program where I'm working. And so growth and maturity and navigating relationships and building good habits and breaking bad habits, and that's the primary kind of part of it for us, especially. Partly because these men are still years from priesthood, and many of them are coming in as freshmen in college. And so it's their first experience of living away from home, of going to college, of being on their own and having to do a lot of things on their own. Take time for studies and navigate friendships and such. So that's a big part of the work that I do. We all wear a few hats, but that's the primary work that I have there.
Okay. Is it like spiritual formation too? Is that kind of a separate category?
Yeah. So there are 4 pillars of priestly formation: human, spiritual, intellectual, and pastoral.
Gotcha.
So human is what I spend most of my time doing. Spiritual formation, we also do, but another of the priests on staff is the director of spiritual life or spiritual formation for the seminary. I'll be doing some spiritual formation this year.
Okay.
This coming year, and I did a little bit of it this past year, but not as much. But for us, that the spiritual formation part is kind of two basic things that we do. One is like retreats and conferences that we have. So we do retreats at the beginning of the year, and we do them during January terms. So the university where our men go has a January term before the spring term begins.
Gotcha.
So that gives us some time to do some retreats, do a mission trip for the new seminarians, and so that's some time for some solid spiritual formation in those retreats that we do.
That makes sense. So then, with human formation, are you assigned certain seminarians, and so you kind of walk with them through the year? Does it change year to year? Do you stay with the same guys?
Yeah, that's correct. The way that we divide it up, there's 4 residential floors at the seminary, and there are 4 priests doing the same work that I'm doing, or I'm one of the 4 who are doing the work. And so all the guys on my floor, and that's a mix of guys from freshmen to seniors, are the men that I have in formation, in doing human formation with. Some of them will then kind of go to Rome, and we keep them in formation while they're in Rome. We just do it via video chat there. So that's...
Oh, okay. So you stay with them
Correct.
then throughout their time, whether they're there or not.
Yeah, and then we try to have some stability in terms of keeping a man in formation with the same priest over time. So you build up a relationship, and I don't have to start with like, hey, how are you? My name's Father Nolan.
Right, exactly. Like start at square one again at the end of the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. And this was your first year doing this,
Correct.
Right?
Yep, just finished my first year.
And it went well?
You
like it?
Yeah, I do. I love the work. The first year of anything is a lot.
Right.
It's a fire hose to learn everything, but it was great. Loved working there. The seminarians are awesome to work with. It's just a great opportunity to work with a small number of people. There's 100 seminarians, just over 100 seminarians at St. John Vianney, which is smaller than any of our parishes by a lot.
Yeah,
certainly.
That's true.
And it could be awesome, even though it could be also just boring, but awesome to like have a parish of 100 people.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, and that's my parish, and so and then even more particularly, I have about a quarter of those in formation, so about 25 to 26, 7, and so it is a very focused exercise of fatherhood, and very focused. Like this is a very small group of people that I'm working with, and I'm not really doing much kind of outside the seminary.
Yeah.
Because of that intense focus on seminary formation. And then I've also just really loved, there were 6 of us priests this past year. This coming year there'll be 7.
Okay.
One priest is joining staff and no one's leaving, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And like I get to work with brother priests as peers, and we can just talk about our shared work together at the seminary, in a way that's really cool to be able to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in parish ministry as much.
Yeah. After working with seminarians like so intensely for a year, like what is your go-to discernment advice to someone?
One of them is, because one of the things that's just been, that bounced around my head, and it's very much true of my own discernment of becoming a priest, is to say that discernment is a work that the Lord is doing and the discerner is doing. So that's part of it is for the men in my care, for my own discernment, like, do I think the Lord wants this is one question, and do I want this is another one. And they're both important to answer in the affirmative. I have to say yes to both of those to discern the priesthood well, to discern anything well, but we're a seminary. To discern the priesthood well, I have to say I want this. And my wanting it doesn't mean like in a world apart from the Lord, because that world doesn't exist.
Yeah.
In a world separate from the Lord's call, well, again, there is no such world. The Lord is calling. And but I do have to come to a place of saying, like, I want this affirmatively for myself, and think that this will be really good for me and I'll be happy here. And I think the Lord wants it, and the Lord does that both interiorly in prayer and also exteriorly through his people and those that he works with that a man works with in seminary.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what's your advice if you feel like the two conflict with each other?
Yeah, I think, so when there's a conflict there, especially if I think the Lord wants it, but I don't want it, is partly just to say, like, okay, let's work on your relationship with the Lord. Like, what's happening there, such that his desires for you are not your desires for you. Like, that means something. And what it means is interesting and not sort of easily said in the abstract. Or maybe, like, there's multiple things that might mean in someone's life. Why is there conflict there?
Yeah.
And then for some men, and there have been some men in seminary and in formation who, like, wanted to be a priest, but the Lord wasn't calling. Great. You went to seminary. Seminary is the place of the church's discernment of the priesthood. It's not before seminary. It's not some other place. Like, seminary is the church's place of that. He went to seminary. Seminary worked, and he left because the Lord was not calling him. Great. Praise God.
Yeah.
Like, it worked the way it was meant to, and the Lord will never be outdone in generosity or in, like, saying, I want to give my life to the Lord. Great. You don't have to be a priest to give your life to the Lord.
Yeah.
But certainly if that's what the Lord wants, then go do that.
So what's your vocation story?
Yeah, I entered seminary. I actually am an alumnus of St. John Vianney.
Okay.
So I went there myself for college.
Back to the alma mater.
So back to the alma mater. Love that. And when I first started to think about the priesthood, when I was, it was like the end of middle school, beginning of high school.
Okay.
Somewhere in there. I don't know precisely because there's not like a moment in time at which I first started to hear the call or think about it. And this call just kind of stayed with me throughout high school. And then near the end of high school, I had the opportunity to go and visit St. John Vianney and the University of St. Thomas, the school that St. John Vianney's at, and just loved it and applied to the diocese and was accepted. And so I went to St. John Vianney Seminary, and I was there for 4 years of undergrad, which was, for me as well, a great time to grow in maturity, to learn to pray. I still remember, and I've told this story a few times too, the first holy hour that we were there. So we had a holy hour every day. And the first one, when I was there, we prayed morning prayer. So I kind of sat next to a seminarian to learn how to do it because I didn't know how to do it. And so we prayed morning prayer, and then we had, a good 40 minutes of silence. And maybe 10 minutes in, 20 minutes into that silence, I realized I'm not really sure what to do. And that was actually a hopeful thing, not joyful, I guess, but a hopeful thing, because I realized in the same instant, I'm in a place where I can learn. Like, I'm here with Jesus in the Eucharist, and I'm not sure what to do with just silence with him, but I know that I'm in a place where I can learn that.
Yeah.
And that was a great recognition that stayed with me throughout my time in seminary, to say, I'm going to learn what to do in this time. And really what that boils down to is I'm going to learn how to just stay in relationship with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has been one fruit of my time in seminary. I then went to Mundelein Seminary for 4 years for graduate studies and formation there. Had a great experience. And then I was ordained in 2013, so 12 years ago.
Okay.
And I was an associate for 3 years, and then a pastor for 8. And one of the things, and then I've been at seminary for 1.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that's actually cool about having been a pastor for 8 years, before going to seminary, is I realized it. So especially our freshmen who are coming in, 8 years ago, they were in like 4th grade or 5th grade, which was my terrifying till out of the day when I realized that.
Yeah, math gets scarier as you get older.
It does. It does. But part of what it means is I can look and say, I think that this seminarian keeps working on whatever this is, working on his prayer, working on building habits, on studies, on whatever it is. Yeah, good. And in 4 or 5 years, friends, you'll be in a place that you're happy with. But
Yeah.
you can't see that.
Mm-hmm.
That's because for you, 4 or 5 years is an impossible amount of time.
Right.
But for me, 4 or 5 years, okay, yeah, that's reasonable. We can scale a thing over that amount of time.
Right.
So it's given me some great perspective to say, because one of the ways that it's talked about, partly in our moral theology, but in formation as well, is the law of gradualism. We don't expect of a freshman coming into college seminary what we would expect of a man who's preparing for ordination in 6 months.
Yeah.
The expectations are different, but is a man kind of tracking well along that law
Towards
of gradualism
that.
and towards that?
Yeah. I feel like you can't go wrong in going to seminary. I mean, maybe if you're not supposed to be there, whatever. But you just learn so many things and life skills and prayers, and just to see that in my own brother has been a very cool experience too. And if he does become a priest, great. If he doesn't, he's only a better man from this. And I think that that's a cool perspective to see too.
Yeah, and that is a cool thing that families and friends of guys report. And men sometimes report it on the other end, and just the way that sometimes when I go home, they recognize in themselves, I'm different.
Yeah.
They can see the change sometimes when they go home,
Mm-hmm.
and they're back at home, and they're back with their family and
Right.
friends who know them,
Prior
to this year of formation and intensive work, and so they can then see it, and you're like, yeah, dude, see, formation works.
Yeah.
It's a
You're like,
beautiful thing.
see, we know what we're talking about every once in a while.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
At least one out of 10 times, we know what we're doing.
Do you have a favorite memory? It could be fun, funny, or more serious, from this past year that, just a favorite memory from the guys or from your experience.
During the conclave,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then the election of Pope Leo, we prepared and then just went nuts for it, which is exactly what I think we should do and did do.
Yeah.
And it put on a big parade through campus. The president of the university was the first person to show up at the seminary after White Smoke.
That's awesome.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
And public safety escorted our little motorcade of golf carts and such through campus. Facilities lent us one of their trucks to be the Pope Mobile.
That's awesome.
And there were seriously 300 or 400 students who gathered and joined us in this. And I overheard a college student say, why is this more fun than football games? And I really wanted to answer her, but she was walking away with her friends
Right.
or whatever, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. But the thing that I can see that maybe they can't see is, because we have a common purpose. It's not centered around just self and pleasure and hedonism, but it's centered around our shared love and joy for Pope Leo.
Yeah.
And the election of the Pope, and this shared thing that we have. That's what makes this fun and cool and exciting.
Yeah.
It was just an awesome time to be a priest at the seminary and just kind of along for the ride. This is the seminarian's show. And I'm just along for the ride. And I'm loving the ride.
That's so fun. It's such a unique opportunity because, like, we don't get to elect a pope that often.
Yeah, 12 years.
Yeah, and he's an American, too, which, like, added to the excitement and the hoopla. I mean, there would have been hoopla, I'm sure, no matter what. But it is just, it's an exciting time. Because you guys also built a chimney, too, didn't you?
Yes. They took a fog machine and rigged it to...
a fog machine?
And rigged it to, like, a pipe.
That's
to make
hilarious.
white smoke out of it.
That's so fun.
I had texted a priest friend who's from Chicago, and I just said, Chicago for the papacy.
Chicago for the papacy.
Like, who knew? Who saw that coming?
I know.
I did not.
It
was one of the things that we like some of the priests at the seminary reflected on together was, 7 months ago, 10 months ago, whatever, now Pope Leo was at a White Sox game. He was in the Diocese of Joliet for a dinner thing. He was at dinner at the Irish College with some of our guys who were in Rome in the fall semester. And it was like, now he's the Pope, and you're like, none of those things are going to happen again. Like, he's not going to another White Sox game, ever.
Yeah.
He might watch it, like he might get the Vatican to get cable or get whatever. Get a little satellite feed so he can watch the White Sox. I don't know. I would love that. But he's probably never going to a White Sox game again. Like, his life is dramatically more given over to the Lord than it was before.
Yeah.
But that's also, like, that's the dynamic of making a gift of self that we're meant to do in any vocation. Like, any vocation is meant to be a gift of self. And it's the thing that like our seminarians, for example, like they don't recognize they have greater freedom today than they ever will again. The freedom to do what they wish with their time. Yeah. They have more of it than they will have again as time goes on. I mean, maybe next year as a sophomore or something, but but over time, their freedom to do what they wish, construed as things that are fun and enjoyable and what they like, rather than the things that are for which they're responsible. But that's the dynamic of vocation, any vocation. Yeah. Vocation in marriage. When you're married and you have kids, your life is much less your own than it was before you were married and before you had kids. Yeah. And the same thing happens in priesthood, as a religious, in any vocation. But that's the dynamic of it, is I make of myself a gift, a gift to others, and that gift of self matters. And it also means more and more giving over, and giving over fundamentally to the Lord and to his people.
I could only imagine, like, how overwhelming getting that news that you've been elected Pope is. Yeah. Because your life changes just like that.
And, like, you don't even go back to wherever you'd been staying before the conclave. Right. To, like, pack up your room. Like, someone else does it. Right. You're like, no, all of that stuff is just gone.
Yeah. And so fun hearing his brothers talk, and he's like, I don't even know how to contact the Pope. Like, how do I contact the Pope, who's my brother? And you're just like, I don't know. And it changes so instantly. And it's like, you hear of, like, fame overnight, but I don't think there's anything as drastic as this moment. Like, I'm not sure anyone's life could change as quickly, because president, you're running for president. Like, your life could change on election night, or, like, if you're a monarch, like, you're born into the family, like, there's so many things. And if you're just, like, a movie star, it's like, okay, well, you're working towards this thing. I'm sure, I don't know if any of our popes have really dreamed of being Pope, Like, could you imagine, like, what if you became Pope one day?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. That's not what I want.
That's not what I want.
We talked about that. Like, the Lord wants it, the man wants it. Like, you
gotta. You're like, God, I don't want it. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
So, now we gotta talk about you outside of priesthood. Okay. What's a fun fact about yourself?
I have an identical twin brother. I feel like I should say this one.
Yes.
People keep mixing us up.
I did.
Someone came up to me the other day. I was at a grad party, a graduation party that I'd been invited to. That was great. Yeah. And someone came up to me and said, so Sean, and then started talking about the school where he works. And I said, I got to interrupt you. I'm Father Scott, right? And then and then the person just looked at me like, oh, you're wearing a collar. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought I thought you were just having fun. I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was having fun. I was going to see how long I could go with it.
Right.
Turns out I could go with it for about 7 seconds. That's about how long
That's
I could.
hilarious. Because I feel like the collar's now a dead giveaway of who's who.
You know, I would think it would be, but some people...
But no.
I guess she just looked me in the eye and didn't even look down at the shirt that I was wearing, which that's great, you know? You like just look people in the face and
Sure.
know who you're talking to, unless you're talking to an identical twin.
Unless, yeah.
And then you just got to be ready for that.
Yeah. I would assume, too, that more people get Sean confused with you, because you could just technically be, like, potentially not wearing your collar.
Right.
You know, but Sean's not going to be wearing a collar at any point.
Yeah. I think historically, like, that has been more the dynamic. More people confuse him for me.
Yeah.
But I feel like with me not being assigned in the area, it might switch a little bit to more people thinking that I'm him.
That's fair.
And
that's
not
actually a good point.
that I'm around or knowing me. And some of it is just like the changes of setting.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm in the place where I'm assigned, most people assume the person they're talking to is the person they're expecting.
Mm-hmm. Growing up, did you guys ever switch places?
Oh yeah.
Do any of that?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if some of it is just like, if people are gonna mix you up, you might as well just have fun with it.
Oh, absolutely.
And mix them up. Like, why not? You know, just.
Did it ever work on your family, like your parents?
Not really.
Okay.
Once in a while, our parents, like, if they were in the kitchen or in the living room or something, and they'd call us by the wrong name. Once in a while, because they didn't really look much, they just kind of glanced over.
Yeah.
But being a teenager, I just didn't respond.
Right.
When they would do that, because I was a teenager, and that's what I thought was the mature way to handle that. I was mistaken, but
turns out not true.
No.
Are you more similar or more different?
We are definitely more similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people who know us can tell us apart, certainly.
Okay.
But we're pretty similar.
Yeah.
We still look a lot alike. I'm told that we speak in similar ways and have similar mannerisms.
Okay.
I'm told it's hard for me to be a good judge of that, I think.
Fair enough.
Some of it, though, is because we've all seen siblings who are just very obviously siblings.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just, well, they're actually the same age and had similar experiences throughout their growing up years. And so they ended up looking a lot more alike.
That's true. Do you think people morph to, like, look like... Like, have you heard that where
married couples do it all the time.
Yes, where
it's
spouses start to look alike?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that is more mannerisms. Like, their mannerisms match up, so then, like, the way they hold their face and stuff.
It could be.
I don't know, because sometimes I think it's appearances, too.
It does feel like...
weird.
It does feel like they kind of grow to look alike sometimes, and I'm like... Good for you, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
But I don't really know because I'm not sure what to think about this.
Right.
I'm still a little ambivalent.
It's one of those things, it's like not scientifically proven yet, but like I will ask God when I get to heaven one day. Be like, does this actually happen or is our brains just tricking us? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those mysteries.
It is.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's one of those things like the brain-body connection things that we just don't really understand very well yet.
Probably.
You know, like, why does a placebo work?
Right.
Sometimes, and it's like we don't really know, but it does sometimes. And as I've always said, like if a placebo worked, I would take it.
Oh yeah,
because
for sure.
Why not?
Right.
Why not? It's just a sugar pill. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
But if it works, and yeah, but kind of those like that fun kind of edge of like, how is this happening? And then what's the interaction of the person's soul in this too? And how is like the soul's vision of itself, of herself or himself, I guess, impacting then the body and what's happening? Because there is a real connection. The body is contained in the soul.
Yeah.
And so how does that connection then kind of show up in the body? And part of the answer is it's mysterious to us. And then part of the answer is like maybe these are some of the ways that happens.
That's interesting. Okay, this is a question that just came to mind, which I guess I don't really know the answer. Does your soul have a gender, or is that just your body?
There is theological disagreement on the matter.
Okay.
Aquinas, following Aristotle, says that the soul is not gendered, but the body is.
Yeah.
I think, and so the person's gender is remaining essential, but is connected to the body.
Uh-huh.
There's some interesting, I think, kind of newer theological and philosophical reflections, especially from a D.C. Schindler and others, who are trying to come to like a Catholic understanding of the genderedness of the soul. Like, can it be? Like, does that even make sense? And if it is, how? Like, what does that mean? And what are the implications for our anthropology or our understanding of the person and theology and such? So it's partly actually an unsettled question
Interesting.
in theology, in Catholic theology. The unsettled question is the soul gendered as well? Not the unsettled question is not, is gender essential to the person? It is.
Right.
It is essential to the person.
Yes.
That part is clear. It is unchangeably essential to the person.
Yeah.
But is it in the soul or not?
That's interesting. Do you have a take on it? You don't have to necessarily share that, but I'm just curious.
To me, I think that the more interesting and convincing argument actually is that the body and soul are both gendered together in ways that are interesting. So after the body and soul separate in this violent thing we call death, does what remain gendered? And Aquinas and those following him would say yes, and it does, because it retains a connection to the body in some fashion. Like, that connection is never wholly broken.
Yeah.
Okay. But I tend to think, no, there is something gendered about the soul. Like the seat of personhood in the soul is itself masculine or feminine or male or female, and not only the body giving it that quality. In a sense, then it part of what I wonder about, and this is more than just kind of wondering, is the soul also kind of informing the body and what the body is meant to be and how it's meant to act, right? So is there something masculine about the soul of a man? And I think the answer is yes, but that would seem to imply that his soul is also male.
Yeah.
And not that his soul is human and then takes on maleness through his body.
Interesting. I've never thought about that before until this conversation, but it is interesting. Well, another popular question that I like to ask is, do you have any hot takes?
Do you have any hot takes?
Yeah.
Ooh. Hot take, ChickfilA sauce is the best sauce.
I don't think that's a hot take.
That's
I
not a
was
hot
about
take?
to be afraid that you were going to say it wasn't good.
Oh, no. That would not be accurate.
Well, maybe I don't think it's a hot take because I'm in full agreement.
Oh, okay. All right.
But, because it's the only condiment I like. Do you think Chick-fil-A or Raisin Cane's is better?
ChickfilA.
Because we're getting Raisin Cane's in Michigan, West Michigan.
We've got a few of them in Minnesota, and the guys go nuts over it. They're like, Raisin Cane's, and they go nuts.
Yeah.
And they're super excited about it. I don't really understand the excitement. Maybe just because I'm like, it's fried chicken, guys. Like, it's good fried chicken.
Yeah.
But, like, it's fried chicken. I mean, we're not...
Right. But you don't think the special sauce or whatever they call it is better than Chick-fil-A sauce?
No.
Yeah. Thank you. It is... It's very funny getting into conversations with people that they're very passionate about. Like, what is your big, like, passion subject, would you say?
I mean...
It's, like, kind of obscure.
Yeah. I don't know, because I don't know. Maybe I'm one of those people where, like, I can get fired up about stuff and just start, like, I can just go and I can talk about
argue.
it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I actually have noticed which things I do that with. And
if there's, like, a rhyme or a reason to it.
Yeah. Because I also know that there have been plenty of times when I can sense in myself, like, oh, I'm about to get fired up about this. And I could be going for a bit about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Or, like, this is the time.
That's self-growth.
Or just, like, no, we're in the sacristy. It's before Mass. We're just going to leave it. Like, let's just leave it there. And so I don't go on a rant about it, even though I want to. But
yeah.
So I don't know if I can actually articulate what those things are. Certainly one of them, because for some reason this comes up at the seminary a lot.
Okay.
Like, is Michigan part of the Midwest? Is Oklahoma part of the Midwest? I don't know why these are questions. Michigan clearly is part of the Midwest, and Oklahoma clearly is not. Like, but it's a thing that guys
People
are like
question
talking about.
Michigan?
Yeah, and like, what about the,
What
like
else
the
would it
Dakotas?
be?
A lot of them think that Minnesota is the center of the Midwest, and so literally they've made arguments like, well, the Dakotas touch Minnesota, so they must be part of the Midwest, or Iowa touches Minnesota, so it must be part of the Midwest. And I think Minnesota is not the measure of the Midwest, and like, no, like Midwest is a partly an archaic term, like when Michigan and Ohio were partly considered West, the Midwest was beginning to form as a part of the country. So
you think it's more centered around Michigan?
Midwest,
I might agree with them with it being centered around kind of Minnesota.
I mean,
Or Wisconsin, maybe? Maybe Wisconsin's a better answer.
Yeah, maybe.
Because Michigan's on the edge.
I mean, we are the sort of eastern edge of the Midwest. That is true.
Yes.
I don't think you can go east of us and still be Midwest.
Correct. Because then you get to Canada, and like everything in that like offshoot is obviously East Coast.
Yeah.
So I understand it being the line. The Dakotas are weird.
Because they're like plain states.
Iowa, yeah, but plain states isn't really a category.
Yeah. But it's not.
Right?
But I feel like plain states means not Midwest.
Maybe. I think Iowa's Midwest, though, because they're nothing but corn.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't reduce them to corn.
Corn
but
corn and soy, yeah. Cash crops.
But at the same time.
We love you, Iowa.
Yeah. This is not a bash. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I feel like Midwest is really a catch-all. But also, too, is like Arizona really the South?
Well, I think...
Do you know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't have the same
Southwest.
Southern culture.
Yeah, because like Arizona, New Mexico, I think are Southwest. And then like maybe parts of California.
Yeah.
Those are Southwest.
Or like, what's Utah?
Utah, I mean, Utah's kind of Utah. Like they got, you know, like they're kind of just Utah. Like I don't.
Just, we're gonna place them over here. Just
Salt
the
Lake
whole
City.
state.
You got Utah, like.
Yeah, just is what it is.
Because I think there is kind of a Midwest culture. I mean, there's a leveling of culture that's happening in modernity, in the country, and I think that's been well studied in other places and such. But so much, insofar as places can be said to have kind of cultures unique to them, some of these categories are helpful for seeing them. Because like East Coast culture and Midwest culture are not the same.
No.
And people who travel between them or move from one to the other can see that and can tell the difference.
That's true. I studied abroad in Rome in college, and my roommates were from the East Coast. Like one from New York, one from Boston, like very like heart of the cities of these cultures. And they used to get so annoyed walking around the city with me because I was from the Midwest, and you know how there's all the people trying to get you to come eat in their restaurants or whatever. I would talk with all of them. And they were like, just ignore them. Keep walking. And I would just chat with them. I'd be like, but I just got us all free glasses of wine because I talked with them. Like, so it's just like...
I'm doing okay over here.
Yeah. Thank you for driving around with me.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, Annie.
It was good to get to know you more. I've heard a lot about you from Daniel, and I was like, now I get to talk with him for a while. So,
this is good.
Well, I'm glad you're back for the summer.
Thanks.
And good luck. Keep doing what you're doing. It's important. So,
Yeah.
all right.
It's good.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next episode.